The Secret Life of Pets, Part 1. On a fall afternoon in New York City, a small brown and white dog named Max rode in a bicycle basket through Central Park. The air was cool, but the sun was shining. The trees in the park were turning bright yellow, orange, and red. "I'm the luckiest dog in New York," Max thought, all because of Katie. Katie was Max's owner, though owner was not the word Max would have used. Katie was his best friend. "We have a perfect relationship," he thought, standing up in the basket and letting his tongue flap in the wind. Max had lived with Katie in New York his whole life. He knew Katie would do anything for him, and he would do anything for her. Anything. Reaching her favorite bench in the park, Katie braked to a stop, leaned her bike against the bench, and set Max down on the sidewalk. He spotted a flock of pigeons. "Arf, arf, arf!" he barked at the birds. All the pigeons fluttered up into the sky, except for one. It stayed on the ground. "I'm Katie's loyal protector," Max thought as he approached the pigeon. "I have to protect her from this dangerous bird." "Grrr, grrr, grrr," the pigeon gibbered, flapping its wings at Max. Max backed up in a hurry. Katie scooped him up in her arms, giggling. "It's okay, Max," she said, petting the little dog. "I won't let the big, mean pigeon hurt you." Max felt a little embarrassed, but he loved being petted by Katie, so he guessed it was okay. He looked at the pigeon and gave one more loud bark from the safety of Katie's arms. "Arf!" No matter what happened, no matter what he did, Max knew that Katie loved him. Like the time when Max was just a puppy and Katie came home to find her shoes scattered all over the apartment, chewed up. She opened her closet door and found Max inside, happily gnawing on one of her favorite shoes, surrounded by more wrecked shoes. She wasn't thrilled, but she still loved Max. She knew that their love was stronger than shoes. When Katie walked around her apartment, talking on the phone, Max laid on her couch, wagging his tail every time she passed near him. The closer she got, the faster his tail wagged. "It's me and Katie," he'd think. "Katie and me." When it rained outside, Katie and Max wore matching yellow slickers. If lightning flashed and thunder boomed, Max barked, "Arf!" Really loud thunder made him tremble. But Katie held him close and snuggled him into her warm shoulder. To Max, it seemed like he and Katie did everything together. When Katie loaded the dishwasher, Max helped by licking each plate before it went inside. "We make a perfect team," Max always thought as he happily licked away. Sometimes Katie and Max sat beside each other on the fire escape while they ate dinner, staring at the tall skyscrapers lit up against the night sky. She'd give Max a hug, and he would lick her ear. She would giggle, and he would bark. It was a great life. Perfect, really. Well, almost. Max had one problem with Katie. Pretty much every day, she left. And when Katie left, Max was alone in the apartment waiting for Katie to come back. One morning after a bike ride to Central Park, Katie was getting ready to go to work. Max didn't really understand that part of it, but he knew the basic routine, and he didn't like it one bit. Katie wrapped a scarf around her neck, but Max grabbed one end of it, trying to stop her. She giggled, dragging him across the floor. Then she hauled up the scarf. Max held on with his teeth, so Katie lifted him up and took him in her arms, giving him a quick hug. "Come on, Max," she said. "I'll see you tonight." Katie kissed him and set him back down on the floor. He stood there looking up at her, wagging his tail, willing her to stay. She decided to have Max practice a few commands. "Okay, sit." Max bumped his bottom down on the floor. "Spin." Max spun around in a circle. "Speak." Max barked. "Arf, arf, arf." Max thought that maybe if he did everything just right, Katie wouldn't leave, and they would spend the whole day together. That would be wonderful. But it never worked. She always left anyway, no matter how perfectly Max followed all the commands. "Okay, that's a good boy," Katie said as she handed out the door. Whump! And the door closed and the locks turned. Click. Where is she going? Max wondered. What could she possibly be doing? He sat down and stared at the closed door. He sighed. I miss her so much. Rattle, rattle, keys rattling in the door. Max sprang to his feet, wagging his tail like crazy and licking up the doorknob. She's back. The door opened and Katie hurried inside. Forgot my phone. What took so long? Max thought. What did you... Katie spotted her phone on the counter, grabbed it, and rushed back out the apartment. Bye, Max. Be a good boy. Oh, come on, Max thought. He sat on the floor and stared at the door. I miss her so much. It'd be a long day before Katie came back home, but Max had no idea what she'd come back home with. Chapter 2. A moment or two after Katie left Max for the day, a woman in the building across the alley said goodbye to her tiny white dog, Gidget. Bye, Gidget, she said as she closed the door to her apartment. Gidget was a Pomeranian. She looked like someone had stuck some soft puffballs together and placed a pink bow on top. She loved the friend who fed her and took care of her, but she had a secret. She also liked Max. A lot. The second the front door closed, Gidget jumped up on top of the couch she'd been laying on. Then she hopped across to a pillow on the windowsill. Through the open window, she could see Max in the apartment across the narrow alley, sitting in front of the door, waiting for Katie to come back home. Hey, Max, she called. Hey, Gidget, Max called back, keeping his eyes glued to the front door. Any plans today? Yes, big stuff today, Gidget. I got big plans. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to wait for Katie to come back. Aw, Gidget said. That sounds exciting. Well, I won't interrupt. I've got a very busy day, too. She sighed and settled down into her fluffy pillow, getting cozy, ready to spend the whole day staring at Max, who kept staring at the door. At the same time, all over New York City, pet owners were leaving for work and saying goodbye to their beloved animals. In the kitchen, a woman poured dry food into a bowl marked Cleo. Here you go, she said. See you later, Cleo. Cleo was a gray cat with a slight weight problem. Well, maybe her weight problem was a little bit more than slight. After her owner left, she lifted one paw and smacked the bowl of cat food away. Not interested. Heading out the front door of another apartment, a man said, So long, Mel. Mel, a pug, was busy biting at an itchy spot on his leg. As soon as his owner was gone, he scooted across the carpet on his butt, panting happily. Another man said goodbye to his budgie. Bye, Sweet Pea. The little green bird with the yellow head sat on a perch in his cage, swaying back and forth, looking at himself in the mirror. Tweet, tweet, the bird whistled. See ya, Gino, said another guy to his goldfish. Gino kept swimming round and around in his bowl, blowing the occasional bubble. In 1,000 other New York apartments, pet owners said goodbye to the pets they loved, without having a clue what their pets would be up to all day. Sweet Pea didn't waste another moment hanging around his bird cage. Looking determined, he flew straight at the cage's door, banging it open. Then he flew over to a fan and flipped its switch, turning it on. Landing on the table, he clicked the play button on the remote control. On the big screen TV, a video of fighter jets swooping through a deep canyon came on. Flying against the fan's stiff breeze, which held him stationary in the air, Sweet Pea pretended he was part of the aerial attack. In his mind, he wasn't Sweet Pea the little budgie. He was Sweet Pea the fierce jet fighter. Vroom! In the kitchen of her apartment, Cleo, the plump cat, walked through the spilled cat food to the refrigerator, opened the door, climbed up to the main shelf. There she spotted a whole roasted chicken. she said, licking her lips. But then she quickly shook her head, knowing she really shouldn't eat the chicken. Summoning all of her willpower, Chloe climbed down and closed the refrigerator door. A second later, she opened the door again. Back on the main shelf, the roasted chicken seemed to be calling her. She stretched one paw toward it, then stopped herself. No, she thought sternly. She closed the door. She opened the door, gnawing on the main shelf. She closed the door. She opened the door, banging her head on the shelf. Bang, bang, bang. She closed the door. She opened the door. Ah, she cried, opening her mouth wide. Cleo moved toward the roasted chicken, slowly. At that same time, Mel the pug was running through his apartment with a pillow in his mouth. Wham! With the pillow covering his eyes, he ran right into a chair. Growling, he shook the pillow back and forth a couple of times and tossed it up onto the chair. Mel hopped onto the pillow and stared out the window. Within seconds, he spotted it. A squirrel. He launched himself at the window, banging into it and barking like mad. Arf, 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 arf. He kept barking and leaping at the window until the squirrel scampered up a tree outside and out of sight. Satisfied, Mel walked back to the chair and hopped up onto his pillow. But mere moments passed before squirrel, arf, 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 arf. In a nearby apartment, a long, low, black and brown dachshund named Buddy jumped up from the kitchen counter. He hurried over to the red mixer and knocked its metal bowl to the floor. Clang! He got right under the mixer's beaters, raised his head, and flicked the on switch with his nose. Whirr! As the beaters slowly rotated, Buddy let it massage his back. He started with the spinning beater between his shoulders and then moved down toward his tail. Oh, he howled. The massage felt so good. Buddy turned over, lying on his back, letting the mixer lightly knead his tummy. He was so relaxed. He slowly rolled right off the kitchen counter, falling onto the floor. Meanwhile, back in her kitchen, Cleo sat on the refrigerator's main shelf, absolutely stuffed. The chicken bone, hung out of her mouth. All that was left on the plate was bones, licked clean. Eating so much food made Cleo sleepy. She lost her balance and fell off the shelf onto the kitchen floor. When she sat up, she spotted something on the lower shelf of the refrigerator that she hadn't noticed before. A cake. A cake with pink frosting and a cherry on top. What an extremely nice apartment with expensive furniture. A man in a stylish black suit patted his white, well-groomed poodle on the head. "You'll be a good boy, Leonard," he said. The man left dainty classical music playing on the stereo for Leonard. As soon as the man was out of the apartment, Leonard bumped a button on the stereo with his nose to change the music from classical to heavy metal. "Jump!" screamed the singer on the recording. "Bounce!" Leonard danced along, shaking his head in time with the pounding beat. 3 other dogs popped up from behind the fancy couch, headbanging along with the blaring music, and a tiny brown chihuahua bounced up and down on the couch. The pets had begun another wonderful day at home in New York City. Chapter 3. Max stayed right in front of the door, waiting for Katie to come home. He stared at the door. He knew just what she'd be home any minute. Whomp! Outside, Cleo the plump cat landed on the fire escape. She looked through the open window. "Hey, Max." "Yeah, Cleo?" Max answered without taking his eyes off the front door. "Do you ever wonder where they go during the day?" Cleo started to squeeze through the window. "Do you know what? I just don't really care." She stopped, stuck. Probably shouldn't have eaten that chicken and that cake. and some yogurt. She thought for just a moment before rejecting the idea. Max didn't notice. Maybe that's what it's like for you, he said. But Katie and I have a different relationship. Chloe struggled to slowly squeeze the rest of her body through the open window. You know you're a cat, Max continued, so maybe that's why. 'Cause nobody ever love a cat the way they love a dog. I'm just saying, maybe that's why. Whomp. Cleo fell from the window to a desk, to a chair, to the floor, having finally managed to squeeze through the window. Holding her head high, she walked into the apartment as though nothing had happened. Whatever you need to tell yourself, she said. Other pets came through the window, including Mel, the pug, and Sweet Pea, the budgie. Hey, morning, Max, Mel said cheerfully. Hey, guys. Hey, up, Sweet Pea. Sweet Pea whistled his morning greeting. Hey, Mel, where you been, man? Max asked. Mel hadn't come for a few days. Mel just sat there for a second thinking. Then he remembered. Get this. Last Sunday, my owner feeds me a small white pill, right? I start to feel a little groggy. The next thing I know, I'm in the sky. Max was so surprised by this news that he stopped staring at the front door for a moment. Wait a minute. The sky? Yeah, Mel said, nodding. There are suitcases everywhere, and I'm locked up in a crate. Come on, Leo said, not believing Mel. There are suitcases in the sky? Max asked, amazed. So I passed out from fear, Mel continued, and when I woke up, I'm in Florida. Max wasn't buying Mel's story. This did not happen. I will never eat a pill like that again, Mel concluded, unless it's covered in peanut butter, because, come on, right? It's peanut butter. The other pets agreed. Peanut butter was irresistibly delicious. A voice came from a vent high in the wall. Hey, guys! Max looked up the vent and saw a guinea pig. Oh, hey, Norman. You still looking for your apartment? The guinea pig nodded. He was always getting lost. Yeah, going on 3 weeks now. Is this the second or third floor? Max shrugged. I don't know any numbers, but you don't live here. Pallets, Norman said, disappointed. Well, see you guys later. You know what? Cleo said, trying to encourage the little guinea pig. You can do it. After Norm left, Cleo whispered to Max, he can't do it. The front door swung open. Buddy, the dachshund, who had enjoyed his mixer massage, was outside, hanging on to the doorknob by his teeth. Buddy, Max cried. There you are. Did you find it? The long black and brown dog laughed. Ha! You know I did. He brought out a green ball. Voila! Max and Mel looked thrilled. Ball, they both said at the same time. Katie's gonna be so excited, Max said. This is exactly like the one she lost. Look at it. It's round. It fits in your mouth. Chloe batted the ball away with one paw. Max and Mel ran after it. Ball, 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 Mel yapped. Laughing to herself, Chloe shook her head. She couldn't believe how excited the dogs were about some stupid old ball. But then she spotted it. A red dot, moving across the floor. Chloe pounced, chasing the bright red dot around the apartment. Above the cat, Sweet Pea was holding a laser pointer attached to a set of keys in his mouth. As they moved the pointer around, Cleo chased the red dot madly about the room, Sweet Pea twittering merrily to himself. Max set the green ball on the coffee table. There is no other ball in the city like this. One ball guaranteed. This is the ball. Chloe didn't care. She just kept chasing that little red dot. Hours later, the other pets left, Leaving Max alone in the apartment, he returned to sitting in front of the door, waiting. He heard steps in the hallway outside the door. Katie! He wagged his tail, leaped for joy, and danced around in circles. I'm home, Max! Katie called from the hallway. She opened the door just wide enough to stick her head through. Hey, Maximilian, how was your day, buddy? That's a good boy. Max jumped up and pushed on the door, but Katie held on to it from the other side. Oh, yes, I'm so psyched to see you too, buddy. Bump. Something pushed on the other side of the door. Whatever it was, Katie was holding it back for now, not letting it into the apartment just okay. Okay, boy, she said to Max. Calm down. It's okay. Let's all be calm. Bump. Now, I've got some big news, Katie continued. I know this is going to take some getting used to. Bump. But I think it's going to be a great thing in the long... Boom! The door flew open. A big, brown, shaggy dog pushed through the apartment. He had long, floppy ears, a big black nose, and little eyes. He looked like a brown sheepdog. Max, Katie said, this is Duke. Max stared in shock. His world had just come to a big, brown, shaggy end. Chapter 4. Max just stood there, gaping at Duke. He couldn't believe it. Another dog. Another dog with Katie. His Katie. This is not right. There had to be some kind of terrible mistake. Holding on to Duke, Katie said, He's going to be your brother. Max gawked at the other dog. Then his eyes narrowed, his lip curled, showing his teeth. He growled. Grrr. Duke pulled back from Max, whimpering and cowering. Katie pointed her finger at Max. No, Max. She leaned down to comfort Duke. It's going to be all right, Duke. It's okay. Max couldn't believe it. She was yelling at him and comforting this stranger. Duke leaned in close to Max. The two dogs glared at each other. Then Duke opened his mouth. Slurp. Duke licked Max all over his face, covering him with slobber. Ah, see? Katie said, delighted. Duke likes you, Max. With Max still stunned, Duke turned and ran into the apartment, sniffing and checking every chair leg, bookcase, corner, nook, and cranny. Sniff, 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 sniff. Yep, that's it, Duke. Take a look around. She shut the door and leaned down next to Max. I know, buddy, this is a lot to take in, but he didn't have a home. So you and I are going to take care of him, okay? Squeak? Max turned and saw Duke with the green ball Buddy had brought over in his big, slobbering mouth. Max was horrified, but Katie was delighted. Oh my gosh! Duke found our lost ball. She pulled the two dogs together, hugging them both. It was the first time Max could remember being unable to enjoy one of Katie's hugs. Max kept staring at the new dog in horror. Duke chewed on the ball so hard it popped. Bang! When it was time to go to sleep, Duke headed toward Max's bed, but Max growled at him. Brrr. Duke lay down on an old blanket, and Max hopped onto his bed. Love you, Maxie, Kate said. Max shot Duke a look of superiority. Love you, Duke, Katie added, giving Duke a kiss. Max watched, heartbroken. Sleep tight, boys, she said, blowing them both a kiss. She went into the bathroom to brush her teeth. Psst! Max ignored Duke. Hey, little guy, this place is great. Uh-huh. By the way, that is one gorgeous bed. Yeah, it's okay. Maybe we can share the bed, Duke suggested. You know, one night you get the bed, the next night I do, that kind of thing. Annoyed, Max looked straight at Duke. You know, this bed is mine. You get an old blanket. That suits you. You're an old blanket kind of a dog. Whoa, you are stubborn. Oh, hey, I get it. I'm stubborn too, but we gotta learn to get along, Duke said, pushing into the bed. I'll bet we can both fit into it if we really try. Duke spun around a couple of times just to get the right spot and then sat down, putting his butt right on Max's face. Max tried to wiggle free. Ah, perfect, Duke said. Max finally freed himself from Duke's butt. Panicked, he headed straight across the bathroom and started barking, arf, 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 in dog language. Max was warning Katie. Duke is ruining our lives. It's an emergency. You've got to get rid of this dog. He stole my... But all Katie heard was, arf, arf, arf. She leaned down and petted Max. Oh, you little cutie pie. We'll play tomorrow, buddy, okay? Okay, sleep well. She went into her bedroom and closed the door. Max turned and faced Duke, who was standing at the other end of the hall, glaring in the dark. Are you trying to get rid of me? He asked. Max gulped and said, Before I answer that, I'd like to know how much you heard. Duke slowly moved closer to Max. So that's how it's going to be, huh? Oh man, are you making me angry? And when I get angry, I do this. He growled at the smaller dog. Max backed away. And I don't want to do that. I need this place. And if it's going to come down to you or me, it's going to be me. Max cowered as Duke climbed back into Max's bed. Max cautiously crept around his bed. That was his bed, but Duke had completely taken it over. Max had no choice but to sleep on the old blanket. He stepped onto the blanket, turned around in a circle, and settled down to sleep. Swoop! Duke snatched the blanket out from under Max and covered himself with it. Max had to lie on the floor, hard and cold. He lay in the dark with his eyes wide open, shivering. End of part 1.